What's a Canadian farm boy to do?
It's somebody.
What else can a farm boy from Canada do?
It's somebody.
What's a Canadian farm boy?
I can't do it. I just can't do it. I thought I would be able to get through this movie like any other review, but I just can't. I mean, I have sat through Here Come the Tigers, Crossover, and Gym Teacher the movie. This is worse than all of those. So, all I can do to preserve my sanity is compare Slapshot 3 to Slapshots 1 and 2 and tell you why it's so bad. Now, you may be asking if that's fair. Is it fair to compare this to the previous two movies? Shouldn't I just judge it as a standalone film? To which I say, no! If you're going to attach the Slapshot name to your movie, you had better be ready for the comparisons. Now that we have that question out of the way, let's address the biggest issue with this movie. The original Slapshot was raunchy, edgy, and took chances. It was considered especially foul for a movie released in 1978. Now look at Slapshot 2. It certainly was a bad movie, but it was still edgy like the original. Both movies had plenty of swearing and even some nudity, and they both earned their R ratings. Slapshot 3 is rated PG. Not even PG-13. P-fucking-G. How the hell do you do that? How do you go from R to PG? No, more importantly, why would you go from R to PG? It makes absolutely no sense. The first Slapshot is pretty famous and is well known for its raunchy humor. So if you're a parent with young kids and you're at the very least familiar with the first Slapshot, there's no way you're going to let your kids watch this. Not if you're smart at least, because after your kids watch Slapshot 3, they're going to want to see the other two. And then what? Are you going to let them watch those? It's the same reason you shouldn't make a prequel like Marley and Me, The Puppy Years. Think about it. If you let your kids watch the child-friendly version, they're naturally going to want to see the previous titles. In the case of Marley and Me, the kids are at first going to be puzzled once Marley doesn't talk anymore, and then scarred for life once he dies. Although I guess the transition wouldn't be as bad in the case of Slapshot 3, since it does have a couple of instances where they at least try to prepare the kids for all the cursing and nudity they'll be subjected to in Slapshot and Slapshot 2. Take a look at some of the stuff this PG movie gets away with.
Are you okay?
So the finger is permissible in a PG movie. Good to know. But what about this?
Clean the crumbs off the floor. They're very clean for...
Yes, that is a porno mag with the title Slut in big-ass letters for all to see. And look at that headline. How to find the G-spot? Yes, moms of America, I'd like you to picture yourselves having that conversation with your kid.
Mommy, what's a G-spot? Oh, well, it's just something that women have, dear.
Does that mean you have one too? Let's look for it!
No!
I mean, why would you do this? Why would you take a script for a family comedy about hockey and attach the Slapshot name to it? Oh, right, because apparently they were banking on the star power of, you guessed it, the Hanson brothers. Yes, once again, the Hanson brothers are the only returning actors in the series. Now, in Slapshot 2, they were largely absent from the movie because they were in their late 40s and couldn't really play hockey all that well anymore, I guess. But they play a much larger role in Slapshot 3 because now they aren't used as players. Instead, they're the sponsors and coaches of a junior league hockey team. Did I forget to mention that this movie is about a junior league hockey team made up mostly out of orphans? I'm not even kidding. The story of this movie is that some evil real estate woman wants to modernize Charlestown with evil shopping malls and evil golf courses. She even drives around in an evil Hummer. So she goes around town picking out land to purchase, and yes, she wants to purchase the land that the orphanage is located on. Because it's Kids Movie Logic 101. If you have an orphanage, a transparently evil real estate developer will want to buy it. And why is that so bad? Well, I'll let the senior resident of the orphanage explain.
Help the orphans and create a new Charlestown full of life, energy, and growth potential.
Help us? By destroying the only family we've ever known? By shipping us off to dangerous big city homes where kids have tattoos, piercings, and God forbid, Facebook?
Let's talk about this guy now. This is our main character, Riley Haskell. And I'll just go ahead and say it, I fucking hate this guy. He is the most despicable of all the main characters of the 3 films. I mean, Paul Newman's character, Reggie Dunlop, was a liar and a cheater, as was Sean Linden, Stephen Baldwin's character, but neither one of them ever went so far as to break the law. But Riley sure does. In an effort to drum up support for the orphanage amongst the town's voters, he forges a letter from the mayor of Charlestown. And when it's revealed that the letter was forged, everyone assumes that it was the work of this other kid from the orphanage because he works at the local copy store. And do you think Riley fesses up and takes responsibility for his actions? Fuck no! He leaves to go play in a hockey game with the rest of the team while the other kid stays in juvie! His actions were so irresponsible that I was actually rooting for the real estate developer. And why shouldn't I? She clearly knows what's best for this town. I mean, yes, she breaks the law a couple of times, but at least she means well. She has a plan that will double the town's property value, and she wants to build a shopping center. Job creation! I fail to see the problem with this. But no, Riley is determined to keep his orphanage together because they're like a family. Oh, never mind the fact that the house is in terrible condition and that they have the world's most outdated TV, or the fact that the adult who's supposed to be in charge of the place has been on the run from the police after committing armed robbery in Florida, so the kids are living in this rundown orphanage with no proper adult supervision. No, none of that matters to Riley because the orphanage is his family and he's determined to keep them together no matter what. Kiss my ass, you selfish prick. And I haven't even talked about the actor who plays him yet. Okay, so you all know Paul Newman was the main character of the first Slapshot, and he was great! He was charming, charismatic, and just a damn good actor. What else would you expect from Paul Newman? In Slapshot 2, we had Stephen Baldwin as the main character. By no means was he good, but he does show some competence as an actor, and at the very least, he's recognizable. It may take a moment, but soon enough you'll look at him and say, oh, isn't that Alec Baldwin's, cousin? I want to say it's his cousin. You can identify him. Who the hell is this twerp? Grayston Holt? What has he ever been in? Nothing noteworthy. I'm sorry, but the guy is just dull as dishwater. He can't deliver a line to save his life.
That woman gives me the creep. She's like Darth Vader with lipstick.
Darcy is with the dark side. Cleverly must beat you defeat her.
Suck at Yoda impressions, you do! So if the guy playing the main character is unrecognizable, you need to add some more star power throughout the movie. And hell, they even half-ass it in that regard. We already have the Hanson brothers, that's a given, but other than that, all we get are a couple of utterly worthless cameos from 2 retired NHL players, Mark Messier and Doug Gilmour. Oh yeah, and one other famous actor. Leslie Nielsen is in this movie.
This wasn't my vision.
Yes, we all love and miss Leslie, but let's face it, at the end of his life, Leslie Nielsen just kept embarrassing himself by appearing in some terrible movies. But to be honest, he doesn't really embarrass himself in this one too badly, because he's barely even in it. Seriously, he only has a few lines and he's completely absent for the middle of the movie. Plus, he doesn't have any funny lines. Well, then again, no one in this movie has any funny lines, but the writers didn't even give Leslie any attempts at being funny. He's just sort of there. Why would you do that? Why would you cast a guy who is best known as a parody actor and then barely fucking use him? If you're going to do that, you might as well hire some unknown actor at half the price. Maybe then you could afford better sets and production value. Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment. Now, for the most part, the sets for this movie are forgivable, except for one major problem. This was the Charlestown Chiefs arena in the first movie. It's an actual hockey arena located at Colgate University. And here's the team's arena in Slapshot 2. Clearly not the same building, but it's still a real arena. Now let's take a look at the arena in Slapshot 3, which the movie touts as being the home of the now defunct Charlestown Chiefs. You have got to be kidding me! That's not an arena! That's just some public rink that anyone could rent for a day! I mean, look at this! There's just 2 rows of seats! 2! How lazy can you get? And we're supposed to believe that this is the same arena from the first movie? Well, alright, 2 can play at that game.
Hey, look where we are! It's Fenway Park! No, really, it is!
And that's just one of several lame-ass attempts to connect this with the first movie. Let's look at some other examples. We've got Dickie Dunn Jr. and his son, Dickie Dunn III, calling Junior League games. That might be forgivable, except Dickie Dunn wasn't calling the games in the first movie. He was a sports writer for the local paper. Jim Carr was the name of the play-by-play announcer. Research movie, it's called Research. Oh, but I forgot, research is hard. That would explain the name of the guy who founded the orphanage these kids live in.
What's with you guys? Don't you remember who we are? Sonny Newman founded this home before there ever was a Charlestown.
Sonny Newman, as in Paul Newman. Okay, I get the nod at Paul Newman, that's pretty obvious, but Sonny? Is that in reference to one of Paul Newman's movies, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Because if it is, Paul Newman was Butch Cassidy, Robert Redford was the Sundance Kid, you hacks! But probably the most shameful attempt at connecting these 2 movies comes from this bit of dialogue.
The amazing Hanson brothers, whose ferocious might and legendary skill won the Federal Cup for this town in 1977. They lived in this very house when they were boys, just like us.
Oh, bullshit! Do you really expect me to believe that the Hanson brothers grew up in the exact same orphanage? What is this, Final Fantasy VIII? Now, it's true that in the previous 2 films, we never knew where the Hanson brothers came from, so technically saying they grew up in this orphanage isn't retcon. But it's so obviously forced. I mean, they grew up in the orphanage and then they got to play for the town's own hockey team? Wow, what are the fucking odds? Oh, and it only gets stupider. Listen to what the Hansons say about their time in the orphanage just a few scenes later.
We had some really great times living at the old Newman home. Until we got pro contracts and our mom made us move back in with her.
Come again, fellas?
We had some really great times living at the old Newman home. Until we got pro contracts and our mom made us move back in with her.
So, you lived in an orphanage until you signed pro hockey contracts, and then your mom made you move back in with her. Forgive me if I'm just being ignorant, but if your mom was alive and had a house for you all to live in and could just make you move back in with her, why the fuck would you be living in an orphanage in the first goddamn place? What? Did you just like being around other kids? Yeah, I guess going to school and growing up with 2 brothers each wasn't good enough for you guys. No, you had to live in an orphanage and your mom just let you do that because apparently that's just something you can do. Holy fuck, is this stupid? And good God, I haven't even talked about the kids in the orphanage. First off, there's a kid named Tweaker, who goes ballistic whenever he eats candy. Yeah, the players in the first 2 movies were all hooked on sex and booze. This kid's hooked on candy. Ooh. And of course, that comes into play during a game. Then there's Precious. He's called Precious because he likes to grow flowers in the garden, and the movie thinks that's funny. It's not. Next we have Henry, who tries to pass himself off as being French. And there's another connection this movie tries to make with the previous films. The Chiefs' goalie in the first movie was French-Canadian, so was their goalie in Slapshot too. Oh, and he also had a bad case of OCD. Whatever. But Henry, who is also the goalie on this team, isn't really French.
Henri. Well, you're not
French? No. I'm originally from Arkansas.
Seriously? His own teammates didn't know that he isn't really French. They've lived in an orphanage with him for years, and they didn't know that he's originally from Arkansas. That about sums up this movie. Nobody really knows what's going on, the characters have no chemistry, it's just one big pile of bullshit after another. And now, just in case you're as dumb as the movie thinks you are, and you haven't figured out how this all ends, I'll just cover that for you right now. After the real estate developer outs the orphans for the forged letter, the Hansons make a deal with her. Allow the orphans to play in the championship game against her son's team, and if the orphans win, she leaves town for good. But if her son's team wins, she gets the Hansons' land along with the land the orphanage is on. I would call that irresponsible, but compared to keeping a bunch of orphans in a rundown house with no adult supervision, it's downright sane. So all the kids go to play in the championship game except for Alex, the one who got screwed over by Riley with the forged letter. At the game, the orphans are down by 1 goal after the first period, but then it's revealed that the real estate developer bribed the referee. So she gets arrested, and yet somehow this doesn't mean her son's team has to forfeit. The game picks up where it left off, just with a different referee. Come on, the only sport where that wouldn't get you disqualified is pro wrestling. Later on, Alex manages to break out of juvie and makes it to the rink in time for the 3rd period. Yep, another law broken and nobody seems to care. Fuck, I don't even care anymore. I'm just fascinated by how bad this movie is. The game ends with Alex scoring on the real estate lady's son with a penalty shot, so the orphans win, and our movie ends with the kids moving out of the rundown house and into the Hansons' house, which is now the new orphanage. So, the Hanson brothers, 3 violent and dim-witted hockey goons, are now the heads of an orphanage. They will be responsible for the well-being of these kids. I hate to keep bringing this up, but how is this a better plan than what the real estate lady had in mind? Her plan was to buy up the land the orphanage was on, which would get the kids sent to other orphanages where they could make new friends and have adult supervision. Plus, she was going to bring major renovations and improvements to the town. Instead, you move the kids in with the Hansons, who had previously been deemed unfit parents by a judge, and the town remains a rundown mess, all because the kids wanted to stay together. This is quite possibly the saddest ending to a movie I have ever seen. Hundreds, if not thousands, of job opportunities have been lost, and the town's property values will continue to fall, all because of these selfish, stupid characters. This would be a brilliant and tragic story if it was intentional, but it's not! This is supposed to make us feel good. Oh my God! This movie is a goddamn insult. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and easily the worst movie I've ever reviewed. The acting is terrible, the attempts to connect it with the original are pathetic, and making Slapshot into a family movie is a slap in the face to fans of the original. This script would have been better off being part of the Mighty Ducks franchise, and even then it still would have sucked. And sadly, the bastardization of Slapshot may not be over yet. There are rumors and reports of a remake in the works. Now, I'm praying to God that this doesn't actually happen, but knowing Hollywood, it probably will. And on opening night, I'll be in my living room watching my copy of Slapshot, one of the best sports movies ever made. No amount of bad sequels or remakes is ever going to change that. I'm Iannone, and those are the... Oh, who am I kidding? There are no highlights here. Don't make a fourth one! Hi everyone, Matt Iannone here, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the shirt I'm wearing, Boston Running Strong. I just wanted to address the tragic events of the Boston Marathon attacks, and I bought this shirt from a Reebok store. It was $25, and all the proceeds went to OneFundBoston.org, which is the charity that's been set up to help the victims and families of the victims of the Boston Marathon attacks. So you may not be able to pick up a shirt like this in your area, I don't know, but if you can, please go to OneFundBoston.org and donate what you can. These families are suffering. They're going to be having a lot of medical bills to pay off. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be very painful, and we can make that a little less painful for them by donating some cash and giving them some money to pay off their medical bills. So I hope you'll give what you can at OneFundBoston.org. Thank you all very much.
There were Swedes to the left of him, Russians to the right. A Czech at the blue line looking for a fight. Brains over brawn, that might work for you. But what's a Canadian farm boy to do?
It's somebody.
What else can a farm boy from Canada do?
It's somebody.
What's a Canadian